for most of us, it's quite valuable to sustain and invest in social relationships. So how do we do that? How do we become better, happier, healthier creatures? And that's what the book is about, and that's what most of my research has been about.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show, the home of Googlization Nation, where we talk with HR and business thought leaders about the crazy, never normal shift going on all around us. Our goal is to bring you ways to reimagine tomorrow and explore the ever-changing convergence of people, business, and technology. Here is your host, Ira Wolfe.
Welcome back, everyone, to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization, where we hack your assumptions about the future of work, rewire your mindset, and serve it straight up. Why? Because the future doesn't care if you're ready. And if there is one thing that it seems we're not ready for, is happiness. That's why I'm so excited to welcome back today's guest. He isn't here to sell you good vibes. He's here to show you how the happiest people aren't just lucky, they're wired for it. He's a neuroscientist who made love measurable, turned oxytocin into a leadership tool, and just wrote a brand new playbook that will reboot your entire operating system for happiness. I'm talking about Dr. Paul Zak, aka Dr. Love. In his new book, The Little Book of Happiness, Paul argues that happiness isn't a cosmic accident. It's chemistry, it's connection, and yes, it's measurable, with an app that knows when your heart is full even before your brain does. So if you still think happiness is some sort of soft skill fluff or a side effect of success, buckle up. This conversation is sure to rewire how you look at the future and reality. Well, welcome back, Paul. It's been great. Congratulations on the new book. I know last time you were on, we talked about that was in the works, but congratulations, and it's great to see you. Thanks.
Great to see you, my friend, Ira. You look great.
Yeah, a lot of things going on here. The Little Book of Happiness. We're going to talk about that. I think last time you shared your story about being Dr. Love, and we may bring that up or not. But one is, I've got to tell you, that when I first opened the book, and I'm sure this is pure coincidence, but you know my passion is talking about adaptability.
Yeah.
And the fact that the first chapter is adaptability, I'm sure that had nothing to do with being alphabetical order.
It must have been your influence on me.
Must have been. So thank you for that. But we're going to talk about that. But you've identified, we'll get into kind of how you got involved with this. But let's start there. Before we go down the road of the book, let's take a step back. This has been your passion for 20 years, 25 years?
25 years, yeah.
I mean, how did measuring happiness, come? I'm not sure, as a fifth grader, sixth grader, high school, what do you want to do when you grow up? And you go, I want to measure happiness. Right. How did the story evolve? How did you get into this?
Yeah, it started slowly. So I had done work in the late 90s showing that measures of interpersonal trust were among the strongest predictors that social scientists had ever found to explain why countries are rich or poor. Awesome. And we built a mathematical model where trust comes from, why trust varies across countries. But I would always get this question in seminars. Well, why did two strangers ever trust each other? I go, oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
And then, you take a shower and you go, well, I'm full of crap. I don't really know much about trust. I wrote one paper. And so we really began to understand the underlying biological basis for trust and trustworthiness. This led to my discovery is a grand word, but my discovery of the behavioral effects of oxytocin had really been looked at as a hormone associated with reproduction and care for offspring. And we developed a protocol to measure oxytocin release from the human brain acutely and manipulate it pharmacologically. And so that then you lead into, the value of social connection. And from there, it gets to why people ever nice to each other. And so again, this sort of simple answer in evolution is, nature is red in tooth and claw. More stuff is better. I should steal. I should hurt people. But we don't do that. And so we need a deeper explanation, which is we have evolved very special mechanisms neurologically in which, for most of us, it's quite valuable to sustain and invest in social relationships. So how do we do that? How do we become better, happier, healthier creatures? And that's what the book is about, and that's what most of my research has been about.
And in your book, you start with going back and talking about Ben Franklin, and his virtues, but you've identified 45,
Right.
virtues. So let's talk, and we already mentioned number one, which was adaptability. Really interesting. I mean, how did you derive, how did you land at 45? And then, a next step into that, you've identified even a smaller subset that's going to be incredibly valuable, which is what your talks about your app.
Yeah. Sort of once you start ticking off, the factors that oxytocin release produces behaviorally: generosity, charity, trustworthiness, empathy, compassion. So you start going through this list, you go, oh, I'm actually ticking off the virtues, right? I'm slow, but eventually it sunk into my big head, like, oh, actually, so how many of these are associated with neurologic responses? Well, all of them are, of course. Any behavior ultimately comes from the brain. And so the sort of rationale for the book is a recent research out of Oxford University showing about 50% of people's happiness is due to having a rich social network. Great. What does rich mean? That doesn't help me at all, right? I mean, it's that number of phone contacts. And so because we've been doing work on the neuroscience of the virtues, I thought, well, what we're missing is a way to measure richness, and number two, a playbook on how I can increase that. So we, as you know, we launched this app last October called Six, SIX. My research showed that people need 6 well-defined, high-value moments per day to thrive. Passion, this is energy. It's not avoiding stress. Stress is great for you. Right? Chronic stress is bad, but for most stress, it resolves on its own. Mm-hmm. You got to be turned on. You got to be excited. You got to be passionate. You got to be doing things, having adventures. And when people do that, then they're really thriving. So by having a neurologic measure that runs continuously, that learns about you, links to your calendar and location, you start seeing which of those activities give you so much social emotional value. And the social part's important. We find that almost any activity by which you add a person to it or people to it increases its value neurologically. We are social creatures, right? So we off air, we talked about you climbing a mountain and having a great view in Madeira. Doing that alone, awesome, super, could be a really valuable moment for you. But adding in your wife, your best friend, or it's more valuable, right? It just adds that. So we've shown that this neurologic valuation network for social emotional experiences, which I've called immersion, is contagious. If you're having a great time, Ira, I'm having a great time, right? So it's just the way human nature works. So finally, the book is basically a playbook on how to most effectively invest in relationships by leaning into these virtuous behaviors so that you build up that strength of the relationships that you have and maybe form new relationships. And I'm a very boring person because I want to be efficient. I don't want to well, how can I be happier? Well, here's a playbook. Here's just some things you can do.
We're not going to go through all 45. We just don't have the time for that. We want people to buy the book and read the book and practice the book. But as we go through this, we talked about adaptability. I don't remember the full list, but I know another A was awe. Being, inspired by something, and certainly being in the top of a mountain and going through the Vatican and our recent trip in almost every location, there was a lot of awe, from that, and being able to share that with somebody, with other people, and my wife and best friend, that's important. But there were some also curious ones in there, like caution. And when you go through the list, it's like, oh yeah, that's a positive, that's a positive, that's a positive, and then caution. Mm-hmm. Why is that a virtue, and how does that help you be happy?
Right. So I'm always going to take this from a neurologic perspective, of course. Yep. So we know that many criminals, I've done work with criminal psychopaths, research on them, are impulsive. Now, being spontaneous is great, but that's different than being impulsive, right? Impulsive means I'm just making any kind of crazy decision. So caution means slow down that decision. From a neuroscience perspective, we are attracted to all kinds of, shiny pennies on the ground,
Right.
but we want to sort of let the brain integrate information into an effective decision. So caution really is giving the brain time to do that. So one of the takeaways from the book is, if any decision is really important, buying a company, getting married, getting divorced, or whatever, sleep on it. Literally during sleep, we consolidate information and it basically puts it in a catalog so it's contextualized. So caution just means slow it down one step. Yeah, if a car is racing at you and you got to jump out of the way, no caution, just jump out of the way, right? But
Right.
if you're going to make a big decision in life, you want to slow down, be a little bit cautious, right? At the same time, spontaneity is one of those virtues, right? So I do also want to be spontaneous to go, hey, yeah, it's raining. This morning I took a walk in the rain. I didn't care. Like, it's raining. It's not raining hard. It's not a storm. Try to walk every morning. I'm going to take my walk in the rain. I don't care. I'm going to get wet. Well, that was just a spontaneous decision. Now, if it's flooding and there's a hurricane, okay, I should use caution, right? So again, we want to balance these factors.
Yeah, I mean that's what hit me, because being a student of this, not like you, but just of human behavior and how people interact and what brings them joy, and working in the business environment, it often people tick off a list of positive characteristics and positive attributes, and then when you throw in something like caution, that again, that seems to almost negate it. But we talked a lot about mental flexibility, which is dealing with ambiguity and paradox, and two true, and there can be two opposites or two contradictory truths at the same time.
Right.
And that's where that seems to fit in. One of the things, the book was also, maybe it's my age or having time on my hand, but I started thinking about things that people, as I was reading your book, that told me. And I've got an ex-spouse that told me. I remember 30 years ago when I decided I was leaving. We talked about this prior to that, leaving dentistry and starting a new profession because I wasn't happy. Said, "You'll never be happy."
Ooh.
And okay, just from that response, it was, I'll never be happy because I was always changing things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some, from an outsider, there's some truth in that it would almost look like I was easily distracted, shiny pennies, always doing something new, always trying to fix it. But that aligns with being curious and awed and inspired and motivated and future thinking. And so there's, but I think there's a lot of that going on right now, just in the division within our country, that there's what's wrong with the past. Why do we have, not to make this political at all, but making America great again. And there's a whole debate about making it great again, or why wasn't it great? Mm-hmm. So there seems to be this tug of war between going to the past and you'll never be happy versus always evolving, changing, learning, doing things, and going forward. The book's incredibly timely. And hopefully this becomes part of the solution, but kind of give some context to that, where I was, and also your shrill, it was like, whoa, when I said, you'll never be happy again.
Yeah. Well, that's why she's your ex and not your current wife.
Exactly.
So part of that's personality. So I think, Ira, one reason we've talked a bunch why we get along is we have very similar personalities. And so I'm very high in openness. I think you're high in openness too. I like new experiences. I like uncertainty. I like just being tossed in a situation. I'll figure it out. Like a lot of people don't like that. They want this very careful, if you will, plodding kind of approach. And I'm sure you were a great dentist because you trained and you practiced. But that's a very step-by-step kind of profession where if you're high in openness, you don't want to innovate when you're doing, filling a
I was computerized in 1987. We were using the cameras that people are still talking about. Should I buy that or not, or will be the new version in 1991? So we're already almost 40 years ago. I was computerized, and then there's still some offices that still aren't.
So in the book, I talk about the difference between happiness and flourishing, or eudaimonia, or thriving. And happiness is just a cute state. And again, we spend enough time together. You're happy. You're happy right now. I can just see it in your face, right? So, you have acute moments of happiness. I think what your ex-wife was saying is you're not going to be satisfied in life unless she left out the unless you're opening up new vistas, unless you're trying new things.
It's
That's
true.
your personality, right? That's my personality, right? So toss me in anywhere. So my big trip this coming year is I'm obsessed with the gorillas. I don't know why. I'm going to go visit the mountain gorillas in Africa. It's a big trip, and I've been wanting to do this for 20 years, and I finally have the time. And I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be a tour, right? It's a tour, but I'm going to show up in Uganda. I'm going to have some, a bag with me, and I'm going to go out and hang out with the girls. And my daughter's like, what if they hit you or something? I'm like, oh my gosh, can you imagine the story I have if a gorilla broke my ribs? Like, that'd be awesome. They're not going to kill me. They don't do that with humans, right? I'm like, that was the best story ever. I hope they attack me. It would be awesome, right? But my daughter's a very careful, thoughtful person. So, and maybe cares about me a little bit. And so she thought, why would you ever take that risk? Well, the risk is low and the adventure is high. So again, I think different personalities. And so again, for individuals, why am I writing a book about happiness that includes the virtues? Virtues means I'm putting you ahead of me, right? The things that the 7 deadly sins, the selfishness about I'm more important than you, right? But if you're more important to me, I'm investing in those relationships. And so that's essentially what the book is about. How do you invest in relationships so that people want to reciprocate and they build that tie with you? Ira, you're old enough like me. I got gray hair. Isn't it great when you have guy friends that you've known forever? They say they love you to them. Like you get old enough, it's not weird at all.
Right.
Like that's the best. Outside family.
Yeah. When we were young, we would have been thrown out of the locker.
Yeah, sure. Right. But now you're like guys I've known 40 years, 50 years. You're like, you're a brother. Like I will do anything for you. You'll do anything for me. Right. What a gift that is. Well, you and I have invested in those long relationships. We've taken care of each other. We've been there when people died, when people suffered, and we were there for each other. And so that's what the book is about. How do you, step by step, how do you pick some targets to invest a little in relationships?
In some ways, this shatters the generational, I won't say it's a myth, but belief is probably more like it, that you worked for 30 or 40 years, and there's still this tension between older workers and younger workers. You work, you gave up luxury, you gave almost put aside a happiness. Like you'll have happiness when you retire.
Right.
And now there's this huge, realization of that no happiness, there's no switch. You just don't turn it on. Retirement isn't about just happiness. It can be, and otherwise. So it seems like it's very, very timely with where people are in talking about the future of work, what work means to them, live to work versus work to live. Right. What do you, what are you seeing out there? I mean, is what reaction are you getting when you're talking about happiness and then go, it's like young people shouldn't be happy. They should just work to the bone.
I think in the last 10 years, and this too from working with companies, it's completely switched in which maybe not happiness, but satisfaction or well-being is on the top of the agenda from an HR and a strategic perspective because 2 data points. One is we have near record low unemployment rates and we're not having more babies, right? The US has been below replacement fertility since 2010. Japan shrinking, Europe's been shrinking like crazy, China's shrinking. So if you have employees, you better worry about both their physical fitness, but also their emotional fitness. Give them the tools so that they have the ability to have that work-life integration. There's no balance, there's integration, right? And so to ensure that people are not burnt out or they go work somewhere else. So at least, again, I have a selected set of companies I talk to like you do. So I can't tell you for every company out there, but it's been on the agenda. The war for talent is over. Talent has won. Let's support that talent who create value for the customers in as many ways as we can. And also, by the way, assess the objective ROI from wellness programs, right? It's like so many companies I talk to, I'm sure I'm NDA, so I can't mention them, but a lot of tech companies, which have really valuable employees, they have nap rooms, they have yoga. No one goes. right? But if you knew, say using our app 6, that when you go to yoga, you get a key moment, this is really valuable. Oh, you can keep doing that. Maybe that's a good thing for you. Most people are like, yoga? I don't have freaking time for yoga. Yoga, I got programs to write. I got customers to talk to, whatever that is. So I just think having a language and a measurement to talk about emotional fitness can help change that discussion so that people are, again, not happy every second of the day, but satisfied when they leave work. Like, oh man, I hit some hard balls today. Like, I swung the fences and got some stuff done. I feel good about it.
So we're breaking the direct connection between if you're successful, you'll be happy. So that could be the case, depending on how you became successful. Right. But it's not an if then. It's not a linear equation. If you're successful, then you'll be happy.
And enjoy the process too, right? I mean, gosh, if you're deferring everything to your 65, maybe get hit by a bus. I mean, who knows? So, right. But I think one of the things that's been missing, and I'd love your feedback on this, Ira, is that work is about service, right? The only reason you get paid as an organization is because you provide some service that hopefully improves people's lives. And so if we think about business as a virtuous endeavor, then the people engaged in work should feel great about themselves. Like, oh, I solved a client problem today. I helped someone set up their bank account. I helped them, I don't know, set up a savings program for retirement, whatever that is. You're solving problems. And so we should empower and celebrate that we are wonderful social creatures in which we do care about strangers. Again, you're getting paid. I don't care about the pay, but you're still helping somebody. And that's a really important part of work. I think it's one reason, because of our history of volunteering in the U.S., de Tocqueville and all that, that we work a lot more in the U.S. than a lot of Europeans. Oh, you might say Europeans enjoy their lives more, but they also are not so connected to the service part. You have bigger governments, the government will take care of the service part. Well, we feel like, oh, individuals should help each other, but we get the value of that as an individual. Oh, I feel good because I helped someone today.
Oh, you're absolutely right, and there's been so much written about that especially when we talk about purpose. Helping people understand what that connection is. I just talked about this a few weeks ago with a friend of yours as well, Zach Mercurio, and he came talking about mattering, and it goes back to it got traced back to JFK, I think, at NASA, and when he asked somebody in the maintenance field, it's like, who was working in one of the hangars, I believe, at NASA. And they said, what do you do here? And fully expected a job description. I help clean up, I empty the trash, I sweep up, I clean up the parts and do this. And it was like, I'm helping man fly safely to the moon.
Oh, right.
And we've heard different iterations of that, and that's certainly been missing. And even in the times I've generally been self-employed, but I've worked in organizations. But oftentimes, even in an organization, even on a board of directors where you're volunteering your services, and there is a mission and there are values, but there's a disconnect between the work you're doing and that mission. It's like, I'm just doing my part. Right. Which takes away that feeling, that happiness, and eventually that becomes, what am I doing here? Why do I want to belong? It was just released again. I think Gallup does it every year. That Denmark, I think, is Denmark the happiest country in the world?
It's near the top.
Yeah, somewhere over there. It's interesting. I mean, have you ever done any work? I mean, with what they're measuring, with the alignment of happiness, how they're measuring happiness and how you're measuring, happiness. Any alignment, any disconnects between that? Because if I can almost guarantee, and again, this is just a hunch, so based on science, tell me if I'm wrong. But if you took with people saying they're unhappy with the way things are going in the U.S. at the moment, that we're going to move to another country. If they move to the happiest country in the world, they still wouldn't be happy.
Right. So the analysis question is, I have a house in the only blue zone in the United States, Loma Linda, California. Like, well, if I move to Loma Linda, will I live to 110? No, it's just not the way it works. So you may know, Ira, that we talked about this before, but I have an appointment at a medical school in Denmark. So I go every other year for about a month,
Okay.
and so have lived for brief times there. So I know Denmark well, and one reason they're so happy is because of the strength of social ties. There's around 5 million Danes. They're actually one of the few European countries that actually is growing. Without immigration, they have very little immigration. Really amazing country. They're all cousins. They all know each other, right? So, it's so easy to be connected. They do very interesting things. They have, if students want it, they have a gap year between high school and college where the government pays you to essentially once a month work in a business or a nonprofit and just try it out. See if you like that job. So brilliant. First of all, it's a service endeavor, right? Your government's paying you, but you're helping out some organization and you can see what people do, right? So I think they have so many great social components. So very tight social ties. And even there, as a weirdo American, I'm getting invited to people's houses. I'm associated with the university. So people have met me and like, oh yeah, come, we're having brunch, come hang out. And like, you kind of, as an American, you feel like, well, I shouldn't impose, and they're like, no, we'll pick, I don't want to have a car. I'm like, oh, we'll pick you up. It's no big deal. So that self-reported notion of happiness really is satisfaction with life, like longer term, are you thriving? What we've done with the app is provide a neurologic measure of value. So how valuable is this experience to you? Because what generates value for me or for you or the random Dane is going to be different for every person. And so by having that app that catalogs those things that are most valuable to you, then you can lean in. And we actually have a trained AI assistant in the 6 app that begins to give you advice. Hey, meetings with Ira, fascinating. Skip the coffee, right? Strap in. This is going to be awesome. And meetings with, Susan, you never get value from those. See if you can just skip those meetings, right? So you can begin to make better decisions. And now maybe Susan needs a hug. I don't know what's happening with her, but just knowing that, or climbing that mountain in Madeira and seeing this amazing view. Do more of that stuff. Just we get so busy we forget sometimes to take care of ourselves, take care of people around us, and so this is really giving you a tool to have, again, a different conversation, a language to talk about thriving in a different way.
So let's talk about the app a little bit before we run out of time, because that's easiest for us to do. So you identified the 40 in your book, and they're listed and very easy to read, and a little journaling for people who are into that, if they want to choose that path. But you identified these 45 virtues, and we mentioned adaptability was another one. I think humor, spontaneity, curiosity, courage, long list. But it was like, there's no way you're going to be virtuous in all 45. These aren't all for everybody.
Right.
You narrowed it. You came up with 6. You narrowed it down to not just the 6 best, but choose 6. Am I right? Walk me through how that works.
Yeah. So the 6 app, which is measuring the value of your experiences, we've shown that if that value is high enough and lasts long enough, your brain's all in, like it's passionate, like, oh my God, you love this thing so much. And so the app is meant to complement the book so that as you try to get better at these virtues, right? The Greeks called this phronesis, right? It's practical wisdom. You have to practice this thing. You've got to do it. This is like in medical school, right? Or dental school is the same thing. See one, do one, teach one, right? So reading about it, fine. You got to do it. And then actually share with somebody. So I'm doing this new thing. I'm going to try to, so I'm famous for giving people hugs. Like I just hug everybody. If I own a room, start hugging people, everyone starts hugging each other. It becomes contagious. So so the 6 app just builds this catalog for each individual privately so they can see what's most valuable. By the way, they're not always wonderful things. So we have a super user, upstate New York, who's this wonderful retired Jewish lady who I just love because she's a hoot. And she emails me and she goes, oh, I was in a minor car accident and I got a key moment from that. How come? I wasn't good. Important. It was important. Now you don't want to repeat that. She was an older woman backed into her and she wanted to check, do you need an ambulance? Well, yeah, it was important. So the apps are working as advertised. It's identifying those important things. Now you don't want to repeat all those important things, but if you have an important thing that you also enjoy or involve others, keep doing that, right? Your brain is so adaptable. That's your word, Ira. I'm adapting to this environment of social connection. So I know that I'm 63, my purpose is to be a service dog, right? I am blessed to have enough money. I don't care about money very much. I just want to be of service to other people. And to me, after 25 years, to have a free app that people can use to live longer, happier, and healthier lives. I mean, who do you want to be around? A person who's cranky and happy, or someone who's happy and joyful and passionate? Yeah, that's the person you want to be around. So we can get better at that. Even weirdos like you and me.
Yeah. So yeah, it's so interesting because, and I guess there's probably some limit to where you can do this, but again, one of my approaches over the last few years has been kind of minimizing the interactions with the toxic people who were in my life.
Right.
From friends, which are sort of easy to cut out, but some family. Which becomes difficult and which goes against, but family's family, and you're always there. But that doesn't help your happiness, your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, and there. So there's a lot of beliefs out there that seem to hurt our happiness, I guess, or limit our happiness.
It is measurable. I think of, so congratulations on that. I've tried to do the same thing. I think of this as putting on your oxygen mask when the plane repressurizes.
Great
you
example.
can't help anybody else if you are damaged yourself, right? So
Right.
if you can build up your emotional fitness, you can be of service to the people who depend on you, who need you. And I'm with you. I think, if you have people who are pathological around you, because our emotional states are contagious, they're just going to bring you down. So people are anxious or neurotic. Again, sorry for them, but it's not your business to have to fix all those people.
But they're good at it. They're good at making it everybody else's business.
Yeah, and you can say no. I'm also trying to be in my life simplify so I can be a service dog, and so I'm trying to be very Buddhist. Like I've tried to get rid of almost all my stuff. I live by the beach now. I have a simple life. I don't have a lot of stuff. I give away almost everything I can. I don't want it. I went from 2 cars to 1. I just drive a used car now. I don't want to have fancy stuff. I want to be in the present moment and be available to people, to serve them, to people who love me and maybe people I meet for the first time.
Definitely a need for that. There is no question. So going back to the app. So and again, help people, because if I misunderstood it in a way than other people, you go through the book. It's not a matter of, okay, here's the 6. These are the 6 virtues that resonate with me, so I'm going to focus on these. That's not the way it was designed.
No, it wasn't. Yeah,
it's sort of like this. And again, many people are familiar. I wouldn't say most, but many people are familiar with tools like Strength Finders, or something like DISC or Myers-Briggs, and it's like, oh yeah, that's me, and that's who I am. Right. That's not what this is about. And the app helps you identify the virtues that make you happy, or the interactions or the moments that make
the experiences.
You happy.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Okay.
And again, if you can lean into those virtues, you are more likely to have one of these high value moments, right? When you, help the,
I like that, high value moments.
Yeah.
And you said that a couple times, but
that's right.
That really resonates. Yeah.
When you have children, when you're a guy, before you have children, they're invisible. And then now I see a lady, with a baby and a stroller. I'm like, oh, I'll help you. Like, let me push the stroller, like it's just good human behavior. Right. I don't need to get anything out of it. I don't need to thank you. I've saved a couple of kids at the bottom of pools because I like to swim, and I see a kid, the mom doesn't pay attention, the kid's in the deep end. Of course, I'm going to save the kid. I don't need a thank you. It's not, I'm not doing it for credit. I'm doing it because it is what human beings do who are caring, who are service dogs.
So from the app, it is free.
It is free.
Everybody to know that. They can download it from, and we'll put a link into it in the show notes, but they can access it from your website, I assume.
Right. It's your6.com, you're the number 6, or the app or Play stores will have the 6 app.
Okay.
And you didn't ask me the hard question. Why is it 6? There you go.
We're going there. There it is.
Yeah, you got it running.
It's on.
All right.
We're going to see. Yeah. So we started that. I mentioned that in the beginning of the show. You had 45, but there were 6. So why 6?
Yeah, that just came out that way. I mean, in the data. So when we looked at the number of these high value moments that you need to really thrive, 6 means you're passionate, you're engaging. 4, you're kind of maintaining. 3 or less, you start having depressive symptoms. This is all in published peer-reviewed research. So yeah, if you're not doing well. So one of my dreams, Ira, and maybe I'm a crazy person, is that when you check in with your physician or your therapist, he or she will look at your time series. Like, hey, you've been having, 3 or 4 high value moments a day. And hey, you know what? In December, you only had 1. What was happening in December? Oh, well, I was sick, or I got divorced, or my dog died. And let's have that. If we have that time series, we have a whole different discussion about emotional health, which affects physical health, which affects longevity, right? On and on and on. And so I think that's my dream, is we get this into the healthcare system as a preclinical solution, right? That we're all just monitoring this data stream. And by the way, you can share it with your friends. So if I see, like, my friend Ira, he's having 3, 4, 5, 6 key moments, and then all of a sudden, 5 days in a row, you're in the red zone. You're only getting 1 key moment. Like, God forbid, I could call you up. Hey, my friend, are you all right, man? It looks like you're like, let's go grab a coffee. What's happening? Like, I'm having a really bad week. Or you're in the green zone. You've been nailing it. You've got like 8 key moments every day hey, dude, let's go get a beer. Like, you had the best week ever. Like, just to remind us, as stupid humans who are busy, who forget about doing the important social things, check in with your friends. Let them check in on you in a non-punitive way, and just in a caring way. Like, hey, you're one of my best friends. You share your data with me, and so make sure you're doing all right.
So I just started using this. So I got the PDF of your book, and I saw it there, and I downloaded it. So how long does it take to get the data? I mean, to get feedback.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get data immediately. The first day you use it, you'll get data on what your key moments
within
are.
a day. Okay.
So it starts, by the way, with population averages, and then begins to learn about you, right? So those 6 key moments are based on a population, but it'll adjust them up or down so that you have reasonable goals. So it's learning about you. It's got AI built in.
And I'm sure our conversation for the last 30 minutes or so is one of those key moments. So I've got one checked off, right? Well, I know last time we did. So yeah. How does this differ from the immersion app that we talked about last time?
Right, same engine, but it's just looking at these really peak immersion experiences that last long enough that they're really meaningful to that organism. So it's a kind of a simplified version of the immersion app, which is used in marketing and communications and other things, which you need second by second data. This runs second by second, but you don't need that to know what you value the most. You just need to know.
So this is an offshoot of the immersion. You're still using the immersion app.
We are.
So this isn't a 2.0. This is
this is a whole new consumer. The immersion is a really B2B product. This is meant for consumers. And by the way, we have some great partners. The Cleveland Cavaliers have put our QR code up for 6.
Wow!
So they want to give this gift to their fans to live a happier life, and they will get anonymized data to learn. Hey, why do you go to an NBA game? What part of it's our most valuable? That's a good question too. So again, there's a win-win space there.
Yeah, it's so timely just because of the divisions that we have in place, the challenges, these intergenerational conflicts, the shift in the meaning of work, the future of work, the threats of AI, and there's people that are talking about losing your job, and there's other people that are that'd be pretty exciting if I only had to work 30 hours a week and I can enjoy my life and still have everything that I wanted. And then there's other people as well. What would I do if I didn't work?
Right.
What will I do with the other 10 or 20 or 30 hours in the week that I've planned for? So again, there's so many. It's just so timely. What you mentioned before, and it was on my list. So we talked about the 6 things I didn't ask. But what is something? Because we got to wrap up here soon. What is something that you wanted? Another thing that you wished that I would have asked but didn't? That's important to get out.
None of this is about perfection, right? So if we're trying to build better relationships, be of service to others, be virtuous, we're not perfect, right? We're not going to be perfect. So we can't put that weight on ourselves, and we can't expect that from our friends. So one of the things I've learned from measuring over 50,000 brains is that people have good days and bad days, and they don't even know it because they're just adapting to their environment. And so I think it's a real plea for just accepting people as they are. And if I'm having a bad day, I might even know it, right? I'm just cranky for whatever reason because I didn't sleep well, or I'm jet lagged, or whatever. I'm hungry, and so yeah. Again, you don't want to have someone abuse you, or you don't want to be a jerk to people, but I think accepting people as they are, there's a lot to be said for that. You can't really change people much. So just love them the way they are, and they'll be what they are.
You mentioned earlier on, and I'll close with this. And again, just for people that think this is all about mental health, you have the distinction that it's certainly related to mental health, but this isn't about mental health.
This is getting ahead of that, which is
right.
giving you tools to measure your emotional states, finding out what brings you joy, and then leaning into that thing. So again, you can avoid some mental health disorders if you can begin to curate your life to do those things that give you support. As you said, avoiding people who are negative, who bring you down. Hey, we all can be brought down by people around us, and be around those people that bring you joy, that bring you happiness.
Absolutely. Paul, again, this is a fascinating subject I can talk to you about all day. I wish we weren't on opposite coasts, and we would be best friends and
we would
see each other and probably do our walking in the morning. I can see where that would happen. How can, in the meantime, how can other people get in touch with you? How can they get the book? I believe May 6th, which is this may drop on the same day as the book comes out, but May 6th, the book comes out. Where can they get the book? How can they access you?
Easiest to get the book on Amazon, paperback, Kindle, audio.
The Little Book of Happiness.
The Little Book of Happiness, a scientific approach to living better. And you get the free app without the book at your6.com. And you can just send messages. If you're listening to this and you have questions, feel free to email me. I'll reply. Any friend of Ira's is a friend of mine.
And I think it's still Paul Zak. Another way is paulzak.com.
Yeah, pauljzak.com. Yeah.
Very good. Paul, it's been a pleasure. Again, congratulations on the book. I know there's been a passion and a journey for you to get this out, and I love the format. I actually put it into ChatGPT this morning, a chapter of it into ChatGPT to say, can you write a book on adaptability along the same style?
Wonderful. I hope you'll do it.
Yeah, lots of things in the pipeline, still chugging along here. Best of luck to you, and we'll continue on the pursuit of happiness. With
no one has told you this
happiness
today, Ira, you are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it. And until next time, don't let the shift hit your plans.
Thanks for watching Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Be sure to listen to the podcast and follow us on YouTube.